This is a bit of an experiment. These are plant halos for sort of tomato plants and things like that, but they've got a reservoir. And what I've found is when you fill the reservoir up, it kind of runs through quite fast. And what I prefer is a kind of very slow watering where the moisture can actually permeate down. So what I'm using here, it's charcoal, sort of biochar, and a little mulch of sort of worm casts. So what I'm kind of thinking that it'll be almost like a kind of worm tea. It won't be oxygenated, but well, the water will be oxygenated, but rather than growing in the worm castings, I thought I could just sort of inoculate the charcoal with the soil life that's actually in the worm casts. But what I wanted to do is, because this is in a polytunnel and the polytunnel is quite dry, and I'm just going to get these beds prepared, so what I thought I'd do is sort of have some residual sort of moisture in that mulch. And I think this is quite a nice way for that mulch to, it's sort of saturated at the moment, but I'm hoping it will permeate through and it will maintain that moisture level, and hopefully the microbes in the worm casts will sort of help to activate the compost and the soil underneath. And I don't know, I mean, these have just been filled up, so you can see it's permeating through. But obviously the worm casts and charcoal, it's actually what is interesting, I kind of forgot about this, it's actually floating. So the charcoal is buoyant even though it's saturated with water. I don't know, I'm just making mud pies really, but what do you think? Do you think it'll work? Do you think that will activate the charcoal? Don't know. So this is I've had a clear out in the polytunnel. This is just what was left over from last year, so there's green manure, clover and things like that. Succulents growing in here. I've got the capillary trays on the benching. Those capillary trays have got biochar underneath as well, so when you water the plants or feed the plants, the excess kind of nitrates will wick into the charcoal, and that will activate. So I've got some more cloches, just the end panels there. I've got these plastic solvent weld black overflow pipe, and I'm just using those as sort of tomato stands. So this is reclaimed benching, and then I've got some grow buckets I've got to kind of work on. But what I wanted to do is make a separate sort of sump, so it's like a kind of reservoir, and then the top part will be interchangeable. But I'm kind of tempted to, I've got these worm towels here, these are quite good. So there's my like soil feeding stations, and then underneath is another 25 litre container, so there's 50 litres, and I'm spacing those out along here, and I've actually increased the depth of this bed as well. So as you can see, there are some bits of old 4x2. So previously it had a 4x2 raised kind of bed, and now I've increased that, so I've really mulched it with some of the soil that I dug out from the paths, and some worm casts from my sort of worm tower. So this is sort of just really getting the decks cleared, so ready for seedlings when they're coming on, and then I'll harden them off in a polytunnel and then move them through. But with these benches, I leave the galvanized bench frames there, and then as I plant the tomatoes up, I kind of remove sections of this. And what I did previously is I just had a scaffold board along the back, so when the tomato plants are small, you can still kind of get some capillary trays growing. These ones are quite good because I've got some succulents on here. The ones in the cloche, there's no water in that capillary tray, and then these other ones are kind of brimming with water. So this is all it's quite untidy at the moment, but it's sort of that time of year when you start preparing beds. So these beds have been mulched, and I've raised up the level of the beds, so they've all been lifted up 4 inches, so it's got a bit more space to kind of do the top dressing through the year. And these cloches are just sort of are they Dilospermum? They're the sort of succulent plants. They're a little bit frost hardy, so frost tender rather, so I've just got those under a cloche. They do seem to be doing all right there. And I've got garlic sown in here. I'm going to have spring onions there, and then onions in that corner. I've got 2 Dalek compost bins to empty out, so I'm going to mulch that bed, so that bed's going to be topped up. Yeah, so it's obviously a work in progress, but I don't know, feeling a little bit happier about it now. So these were just growing in grow buckets. They seem to be kind of indestructible anyway, and I made a sort of worm feeding station, and these are really good. There's loads and loads of castings in there. That worm, or that grow bucket, I'm going to rethink how I use my wicking, not wicking, well it's also wicking, but there's a reservoir that's connected up to the water butts at the top there. There's some fennel. But this, I've shared a polytunnel so you can kind of see. I mean, this hasn't had any organic matter. Problem is, it's really settled, and so there's soil is actually lower than the polytunnel now. So on the other side, it's another 8 inches higher. So I've sort of had to put all these raised beds up there, and the path is all sort of sliding down into that bed. So this is really dry. That's like a parking space for one of those horrible plastic things. I don't know, this is a Planet pallet, reclaimed pallet sort of planter. So that is mainly just the plastic from the cloche, and then I've got some more grow buckets. I might make some stumps, set the stumps into the ground, and then have interchangeable grow buckets which I can kind of move along outside. I want to have those on the back, set on the back sort of shady side of the polytunnel, just a bit more grow space. And I wanted them to be in containers, so if you need to dig in the, what do you call it, the skirt on the polytunnel, you can kind of move them, and it's not going to be sort of a battle of roots and plants. So these are doing quite well. Look. A little bit of warmth from there, nice and dry, just what they want. A little bit of humidity, so they're popping out little baby plants. It's got new growth on it as well. This was the what was left of the cardboard in one of my grow buckets, but you can kind of see it's just like cardboard cast. There's quite a lot of worms in it. Oh, there's another worm there. It's like looks like MDF now. So there it is. So this is one of the bathtub wormeries, and there's a capillary tree underneath. But what I've done here, I've set that on a bed of charcoal, so the leachate from the bath, from the worm bin, there won't be a huge amount, but what it is it's not really sealed, but it's semi-open to the rain. So these boards have got gaps in, so when it rains, the water will kind of, a little bit will get into the worm cast, run through, and then that will hopefully activate the biochar underneath. So there's some more. These ones weren't doing well. I think it was really too dark under the back, but I mean, it's It's just start of spring, so nothing's really been doing too much, but they're doing all right. Shall we have a look inside? I'll have to phone down. These are quite sweet, huh? Tea towels. They're pure cotton. I just put a lot of cardboard in here. Large bloom activity. Reasonable amount. Not a huge amount. Reasonable. Some worms in there. That's quite good. I mean, I really need to divide this at some point. Look at that. Lime, it smells. That is weird because it smells really lammy, even though the lamb is not there. Yeah, I mean, it's doing their little thing. This is a reclaimed buffalo board. That's brilliant stuff. What I did with this is I cut these 250mm, so these planter trays are 500, so I can just remove 2. Put my tray back on top. What's nice about the planters is they're really heavy, so it weighs it down. It weighs it down, you haven't got to worry about rats. There's some more blue trays with the biochar in there. So the biochar's kind of like a carbon filter in a way. But as well as filtering, it inoculates, and then you can use that as a soil additive. This is quite interesting because let's have a look in it. What have we got in it? There's some beautiful worms in here earlier. I've kind of disturbed it. Monster worms. You can't find them when you want to. Yeah. Because these aren't composting worms, they're more like earthworms. He's a little red wiggler. This is quite interesting because it's like it's more of a transition between. Yeah, look at these. You know, it's a monster. Look at that. Jesus. That's mad, isn't it? You can see my hand now. Whoa, massive. It's a bit creepy. Yeah, very nice. Interesting. So what it is, it's kind of like a transition between the kind of fast composting and stuff, which is what the red wigglers eat, and then it's kind of looking more like soil now, so it's got the more of the earthworms in there.